Summary of the Art of War by Sun Tzu. According to Master Sun, a wartime general must evaluate 5 fundamentals: the way, heaven, earth, command, and discipline. Sun asserts that the general can only emerge victorious in battle by perceiving and comprehending the lessons and forms of each. Winning is about capitalizing on opportunities while also confusing and outwitting your adversary. While preparation is critical, victory also depends on a general's ability to adapt to changing circumstances and make split-second decisions. Sun adds that because war is an expensive and complicated affair that depletes a nation's finances and morale, conflicts should be resolved quickly and effectively. To that end, war should be waged solely for the sake of victory, not bloodthirstiness. The general must act proportionately and compassionately, without overreaching or pushing his men too far. There is no point in indiscriminate killing when an enemy city can be captured in its entirety. Indeed, the most desirable outcome is one in which there is no fighting. The general is accountable not only for the army, but also for the nation's overall strength. The general must be capable of leading his troops and making independent decisions. He must be familiar with both his adversary and his own forces. Above all, a general must be adept at strategizing. Just as water cascades down a gorge, an army can overwhelm its enemy with a well-thought-out strategy. And, while sheer numbers must be considered when strategizing, proper organization eliminates the need for fewer troops. Sun asserts that all war is fundamentally about direct and indirect action, about comprehending and working with, rather than against, the flow of the situation and the opportunities that emerge as the conflict progresses. Whatever the men's capabilities, if the general reacts appropriately to changing situational dynamics, his men will crush the enemy like logs rolling down a hill. Sun emphasizes the critical nature of confusing and weakening the adversary. By concealing his own plans, the general forces the adversary to divide his troops in order to defend numerous points, as the adversary does not know where the attack will come from. With the enemy troops now thinned out, the general can focus his attack more effectively. By compelling the adversary to prepare for an unknown attack, he is weakened. Of course, the general cannot be cornered in the same way. If the general does not know where the strike will come from, his own troops will be weakened and divided. As a result, the general must be aware of the adversary's strategy, motivations, and weaknesses while concealing his own. To be sure, each victory is unique. There is no one-size-fits-all strategy. Victories are won by anticipating and responding to an infinite number of possible situations, as the world is constantly changing. As water flows downward, an army must always seek the simplest path to victory and attack the adversary's weakest point. Sun continues, the fray is not to be entered lightly. Assaulting the army could result in the loss of both men and equipment, and as such the general must first ascertain the terrain. The terrain dictates the attack strategy, as mountains, rivers, salt marshes, and level ground all require distinct strategies for crossing. Sun observes that there are roads and armies to avoid entirely. Meanwhile, gongs, drums, banners, flags, and torches maintain order and unity among the army. The wise general assesses both his men's and the enemy's morale and attacks only when the time is right. He remains prudent in the face of temptations, and avoids falling into traps. Recklessness, cowardice, anger, arrogance, and misplaced compassion are all characteristics of a general, and if an army fails, the general is almost certainly guilty of one of these 5 vices. Apart from knowing the lay of the land, the general must read it for indications of the enemy's movements. If the enemy is stationary, it indicates that he has discovered advantageous terrain. On the other hand, if the adversary is baiting the adversary is luring him into unfavorable terrain. Additionally, the general must observe the enemy's men to ascertain his army's true state. Are they exhausted, thirsty, hungry, despondent, or disorderly? Is your adversary's general malleable, tyrannical, or incompetent? Numbers alone do not win battles, wisdom, understanding, and loyalty do, and the general is responsible for the men's state and ability. Even so, the general should conceal his strategies from his men, who must implicitly trust him. The general is the commander alone, and his responsibility is so great that he can even disregard the ruler's orders when the general who is closer to the battle arena is aware of what is best. Returning to more practical matters, Sun observes that seizing an enemy's prized possession will sway him to the general's will. Once decisions have been made, speed is also critical in war, and plundering the enemy is an efficient way to resupply the troops. Additionally, a fire attack should target the following 5 targets: men, supplies, equipment, warehouses, and lines of communication. The general must be prepared with the necessary materials, and be aware of the optimal conditions for employing these methods of attack, such as the appropriate season. He must not be hasty, but rather prudent, as calamity cannot be reversed. Prudence can help maintain peace. Wars are costly and have a detrimental effect on the entire nation, particularly the common people, so investing in a strong spy network is prudent financial planning. Additionally, spies should be well compensated to ensure their loyalty. Double agents are a means of locating additional spies, and as such should be treated with special care. No one is closer to the general than his spies. With their information, he can ascertain his enemy's weaknesses and attack them. Only the most sage general understands how to best employ them.
About the author. While modern critics cast doubt on Sun Tzu's existence, classical historians date him to the spring and autumn periods, around the 6th century BC. Even his given name, Wu, elicits suspicions, as the term warrior translates. In an era of constant conflict between rival nations vying for complete control of the empire, desperate rulers were willing to pay a high price for skilled generals. Sun was contracted by King He Lu of the Qi state after reading The Art of War, according to ancient historian Sima Qian. The historian recounts Sun's interview process, during which he orders the beheading of 2 of the king's unruly concubines, though many commentators cast doubt on this account. Sun, on the other hand, is absent from other significant historical accounts from the era, leaving much about his life, work, and death unknown. Nonetheless, since antiquity, his military treatise has been associated with his name, Sun Tzu, an honorific meaning simply Master Sunday.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel, so that we are motivated to create more videos.